Started. Hi everyone, welcome to the podcast. How this will work is we'll have a podcast part first where I'll be kind of breaking down with Dhruv about Malpani Ventures Investment Thesis and patient capital and a lot of different topics, and then we'll get into the actual Q&A, which is where you guys can ask Dhruv some of your questions that you have. I mean, there were quite a few good questions, and there are quite a few good people in the room today. We have some folks like aspiring VCs, community builders, ecosystem builders, and some amazing people like Captain and his son Laksh, who have done a superb job at building in public. So, yeah, honored to have everybody here today. And this is like the first time I've kind of done something with an audience. So, usually it's just me and the guests riffing off on different topics. But today I thought, why not bring everybody together, bring some good minds, and have some good conversations? So, yeah. So thank you, Dhruv, once again for coming on board. And yeah, just would love to get started there. Dhruv, would love to kind of get into how has the investment thesis of Malpani Ventures, how has it changed over time? Like the first conversation we had was in 2024 for this podcast, and then now we're in 2026. So how has this investment thesis changed? And are you still investing in patient capital, or like what's the scene with that? And yeah, we'd just love to know a bit more about Malpani Ventures.
Sure, no, happy to be here again, Louis. I think we did this about 2 years back, and I'm happy to sort of do this again. And hopefully, I have become much more wiser, and I can share some insights for some of the good folks on the call. Yes, so at Malpani Ventures, what we do primarily is that we look at a bunch of early stage companies that are compounding quietly, right? We are not looking after, we are not going after companies that are moonshot in the sense that, we are not looking for, 1,000 crore outcomes. What we are hoping for are companies who can sort of dominate a niche, right? And who are building a very specific, who are solving for a very specific outcome and value capital, right? So the three things that we typically look for when we decide that this is a good fit for MP is that A is, is there real customer pull? Is the customer sticky? Is the revenue going to be repeatable or recurring? Two is the founder thinking of building the business for life? So we don't go after founders who are sort of looking to sort of flip the business, 5 years out, 8 years out. What we prioritize are founders who are realistically building this for more than a decade. Right? And there is enough evidence to show that to truly enjoy the benefits of compounding, especially in the Indian market. You create value in years, from year 10 to year 15, right? So that does not usually fit in a VC's fund life cycle. Yeah, so we're looking for founders who are of a similar mindset. And third is, that we go after, frugal founders, right? So naturally that sort of restricts us from some sectors, but the way we define it is that, is this a capital efficient business, right? Is this a business that is not going to be on the mercy of, investors' money over time, right? So probably these three are broad buckets. It's a very long-winded answer, perhaps longer than what you were expecting, but this is how we think about our investing companies at Malpani Ventures. And I think over time, what has changed is that we've become much more sharper, right, in saying no to a certain set of companies, right? So we clearly call out that we are more B2B focused. We don't do a B2C. We will not do companies where the capital raising itself becomes a moat, right? Where a competitor may raise 10x your round, and then that itself can sort of disrupt your business, right? So I think increasingly we are more focused on B2B, and even within that, capital efficient B2B businesses is what we go after at MP.
That's really interesting. So talk us through like how do you actually find these frugal entrepreneurs in India and how do you identify them? How do you back them? And what is like the typical deal size that Malpani Ventures invest in? Because I think founders here in the audience would be curious to know how do you actually source these founders? Is it cold outbound? Is it events? Is it people through your own networks? Like, what is the kind of way that you kind of source the companies?
Yes. So it is a mix of all of this, right? I think there is a bunch of inbound that we receive, primarily because of, Dr. Malpani's reputation. So he naturally tends to attract a certain set of founders. We also make it a point to sort of put out a lot of content on the MB website. I publish my own newsletter. So we try to align and, put out our thought process in the public, and that tends to sort of attract a particular set of founders. So I would say, about half of it is, pure inbound, and it's mostly cold. We do get a lot of referrals now from founders and people that we trust. So those are obviously a big bunch, and then the others are more opportunistic, right? Like, so we do tend to travel to other cities. We like to spend time in, not Bombay, Bangalore, or Delhi, but cities beyond these three, and that is where we sort of look to find the right fitment of the founder. So yeah, so it's a bunch of a lot of things. It's not a singular thing. From a founder lens, I think what I would say is that what you can do is probably try to expand your surface area, right? I think whether it's on X, whether it's on LinkedIn, I think people who can stand out from AI slop today are getting noticed, right? Like, so I think it's becoming very easy to sort of spot AI written articles versus having a point of view. Yeah, so it's become very easy to sort of distinguish judgment from pure, intelligence, right? Like, so I think what VCs are looking for in founders is whether they have a point of view, whether they have whether they can demonstrate their judgment, right? Like, so I think if you're a founder or an aspiring founder, then you should sort of be putting out, your points of view, your thought process, or, just maybe customer conversations, right? Everything sort of adds up.
So I guess the biggest advice for founders in the room today is to just be public, do share things, share your point of view, and stand out from the AI slop. So my next kind of question is: so what is the process from start to end when evaluating a new startup? Like, so you said you get some cold inbounds, you get some because of Dr. Malpani's reputation, you get some deals or whatever. So what is that process like for the founders in the room to kind of understand, like, what does it take to get kind of funded by any VC, or like what is the evaluation kind of process like?
Sure. Right. So very frankly, a bulk of the applications don't make it to a conversation, right? Like, so I think we probably filter out more than 90% of the pitch decks that we receive. Right? It could be because of several reasons. It could be because of a lack of fitment. It could be because of a lack of clarity. It could be because, just a lack of timing, right? But the hard truth is that, less than probably 5% will actually have a conversation with an investor. Uh, from an MV lens, what we do is that after the first conversation, we sort of have an internal huddle where we take a call. Is this company worth pursuing, right? And if it is, then we communicate that to the founder fairly quickly. And the process after that usually takes anywhere between 3 to 6 weeks, depending on how conversant we are with that specific sector, with that specific founder, right? So it involves a bunch of things, doing our market research, talking to potential customers, having a view on the unit economics, understanding how big this could be, doing diligence. So all of this, will take anywhere between 4 to 6 weeks, as per our timeline. Some VCs can do this faster, but we don't like to sort of expedite this process because we want to sort of spend that time with the founder, have multiple conversations. Because you've got to understand that this is a very long-term engagement, right? Like, if we do come on board, we take a decadal view. So it is worthwhile to sort of spend time with the founder, have multiple meetings in different scenarios, try to understand fitment both for the founder and for us. Yeah, at the culmination of the 6 weeks is usually an IC meet, following which we issue a term sheet, right? So that sort of is the end-to-end process as far as we are concerned.
That's a really interesting kind of thank you for taking us behind the scenes of like what happens actually at Malpani Ventures, like how you guys take the decisions. And so just for those who are new here, so Dhruv has this fantastic newsletter where he gets into a lot of like VC related things, I guess, and he shares his viewpoints like pitched on different topics. So Dhruv would love to kind of get into something that may be interesting for the founders in the room, which is how can they tell their stories better? Like in this age of AI slop and AI, everybody trying to just get with AI, how can they be authentic? How can they pitch themselves in a unique way? And how can they get the attention of the investor?
Yeah, I think it is a very pertinent question, Rohit. So the way I think about it is that, a lot of people try to complicate when they are trying to pitch to a VC, right? To my mind, the best way to sort of improve your storytelling is to think from the lens of your customer, right? So if you're building, let's say, a software for Kirana stores in the country, then if you're able to walk through Kirana's, maybe Monday morning, and then, their process and how your software fits in, right? If you are able to communicate to, in not just investors, but to anyone as to why you're making the life of your customers simpler, then it makes the story much more coherent and much more practical, right? And easier to appreciate. I think what gets lost is, when people try to use a lot of jargons, they try to, throw in a bunch of words that sort of, sound fancy, but don't really explain what is it that you solve, right? So I think my advice here would be to always start from the customer, right? Try to, and the way that I sort of judge a pitch is that if you cannot explain your business, right, in less than 5 minutes to someone who's not from your industry, and who you consider, to be reasonably smart, then you're not doing a good job, right? So what I always encourage some of our portfolio founders is to sort of do these dummy pitches, right, to people that they respect but don't understand their industry, right, and assess whether they're able to actually explain what they're doing in less than 5 minutes, right? I think that's a good barometer for founders to have.
So I'm just curious, like if I was a founder, say, like what would I include in this dummy pitch or any kind of pitch deck when I'm trying to get investors on board? Like, is there some best practices or anything that you could share on that front or anything that Malpani Ventures looks for particularly in the pitch deck?
Sure. Yeah. So you're basically, A is it you're trying to communicate why is this a problem for a customer, right? That what is it that you're solving, right? So I think the first thing to get across is the problem statement, right? That why is this thing important for a customer? I think that is where the crux of your pitch lies, right? And then everything flows from it, right? Like if you can explain your problem really well, then your answer will automatically feel very natural, right? Like, so once you explain your problem and then your solution flows from it, in hindsight, it should appear very logical, right? And the response should be, oh, why is this not being done already, right? I think that is the moment that you're trying to get to, right? Other aspects that you should include in a pitch is that why is this being built now, or why is the right time for something like this to emerge, or why could this not exist maybe 5 years back, right? And if you have the time, then you sort of try to sort of explain, how big is the market, how widespread is the problem, why you could become the number one or the number two player in this space.
Those are some really good insights. And then let's cap it off with what are some of your biggest lessons and insights as someone working in this kind of ecosystem of funding startups, finding startups? Like, what have been these big learnings? Also, working with Dr. Malpani and a team behind you. And, you recently, I think last time we spoke, you were having a different role, and now you're having a different role. So, what has that transition been like?
Yeah, so I think in terms of my transition, I was always part of the investments team. It's just that now I lead it. So in that sense, my role has not changed. I think what has changed is perhaps that now I have a team that I sort of need to sort of mentor and ensure that we are all on the right track and aligned with the kind of investments that we are going after at MV. Um, what I have learned over these years is that uh, conviction is very difficult to build, right? Like it's very easy to sort of borrow your thesis from someone else, but that is precisely what you should not be doing, right? So what we try to do at MV, unlike other family offices, is that we try to lead or co-lead as many deals as possible, right? Because we want to build our own conviction, right? Now, I'm not saying this is right or wrong, and this may be foolish as well. But unless you have some point of view, and this sort of forces you to do the hard work, right? Like so, in the age of AI, I think a lot of deep work has become simpler, right? So there is no excuse for shallow work anymore. Right? So that is what we are trying to do, right? And from what I've seen so far, is that it's very easy to sort of get by doing shallow work if you're just sort of hopping onto rounds or trying to get into consensus rounds. I mean, of course, that is also a way to make money, but eventually over the long term, I don't think it makes you a better investor, right? So we try to be we try to be first principles thinkers and not contrarian for the sake of being contrarian, but where we truly believe that where value could be created, and it's an area that's being neglected by investors today, right? So I think there's a lot of alpha to be created if you're early, and at some stage, it comes into consensus with other investors. So those are the kind of sectors that we're trying to go after at MP.
Amazing, amazing. So thank you so much, Drew, for sharing about